All right, today we're going to look at the 13 colonies. We're going to talk about the New England colonies, the Mid-Atlantic colonies, and the Southern colonies. All right, so those three regions are in each of those three regions of the New England, Middle Atlantic, Mid-Atlantic, and Southern colonies. We're going to talk about the climate and geography, the economy, religion, the reason for settlement, and government. And so since we're doing all three regions and we're talking about them by regions, we're going to generalize a little bit on each of those regions. From colony to colony, there may be some slight differences, but we're getting the main ideas here. Okay, so New England. So New England has a very cold and harsh winters. The summers are mild. The growing season isn't very long, so it's not going to be great for farming, although there's going to be lots of small farms. Lots of people will farm, and there will be farming going on, but it's more at a subsistence level. To some extent, in some places, within that area, some places are a little better than others. But in general, farming is not going to be a major source economic activity there, just because of the climate of that region. Now, there are lots of forests in this area, and so one of the big parts of their economy is lumbering and shipbuilding that goes with that. So one of the things you should start to notice is, as soon as I start talking about climate, one of the first things that also makes you talk about or helps you to describe is the type of economy and what goes on. Especially prior to what we would call maybe the more modern age, our lives back then were very much dominated by the climate and the geography of a region. It's still true today, but not quite as much so with the advances in technology that we have. So let's talk a little bit more about the economy. So lumbering is going to be a major source economic activity that goes on there. Lots of work doing that, and one of the reasons why is Europe has been mostly deforested by this time. One of the things that the European countries, and England in particular, are looking for is wood. It's a region that it's a resource that's been used up. And so once the New World is discovered, one of the main things that they actually send back often is lumber. Also, though, of course, ships are made of wood, and at that time especially, and so lots of shipbuilding goes on, and that's particularly good in this region because lots of trade is happening in this area too. So that's something that you don't see on the list here of economic activity, but there is a lot of trade that is happening. Especially in areas like Boston and the larger cities. Boston is a major city, one of the largest cities early on, and it's a major port city, so lots of trade happening in and around Boston. Reasons for settlement. We kind of already know a lot of this. They're escaping religious persecution, starting with the Pilgrims in 1620, heading to Plymouth Plantation, but that continues on for the Puritans in 1630. That begins what's known as the Great Migration in 1630, and they are just tens of thousands for the next decade are traveling to that area. And Boston is going to be a major, the major port of entry for the Puritans, which brings up religion, which is, as we just said, primarily Puritans. Some separatists, which are really just Puritans, but with maybe a stronger sense of separation, of a need to separate and to find themselves separate from the Church of England. We've kind of talked about the differences between the Puritans and the separatists at this point. And then the type of government in this area. You're going to have colonies that are charter colonies and royal colonies. Town meetings are going to be a big part of the government, and some other major changes to the government or innovations, you might even say, is the Mayflower Compact and the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut. And so these are Mayflower Compact, town meetings, Fundamental Orders of Connecticut. These are all what you might describe as kind of a taste of self-government. They're not all of them. Town meetings in many ways are, but these others aren't full-fledged self-government necessarily, but they're major steps towards self-government in that they're going to give people a taste for self-government and this desire for self-government, which is going to, if you once you've had a taste for something, you that taste only increases and you want more of it. And so these are the kind of early steps towards the American style of government that we know today. So let's go ahead and move. All right, let's talk about the mid-Atlantic or middle colonies. So the climate and geography in this area, it's going to be similar as far as the climate goes to New England. It's going to be very cold winters, mild summers, a little better growing season. The further south you get in particular, that's going to be the case, just because you're getting closer to the equator. But the big difference here is it's going to have excellent soil, where New England has more rocky soil, makes it a little more difficult to grow things. The middle colonies have a much better soil for growing crops, and so you can see there they're going to be the breadbasket colonies, and they're going to just have an overabundance of grains that they can use as a cash crop, not just for subsistence. They're also lumbering is going to be a big part of the economic activity in this area, because there's still lots of forest in this region, and there's still a great need in Europe for that wood. You can also see, as you look at the map, those eyes that are on your map. That eye kind of stands for ironworks, and so there's going to be lots of iron ore deposits in this region, and so that's going to be a major economic activity as well. And so you see reason for settlement. One of them is escaping religious persecution, and that's true for Pennsylvania. So in Pennsylvania, it is settled by William Penn. It's going to be a proprietary colony, and what happens here is that William Penn his father is a close friend of the King of England, and William Penn converts and becomes a Quaker. And the Quakers were they were kind of hated and despised in England, and so William Penn's father is really surprised by this, and what he does is he's able to work out a deal with the King of England. The King gives him a huge plot of land that we now call Pennsylvania. That was called Pennsylvania, Penn's Woods, and he makes it a haven for Quakers to go there. But really, it's a holy experiment, he calls it, to where there's a great amount of tolerance for whatever your religious background is. And now primarily it's going to be Protestants there, as well as the rest of the mid-Atlantic colonies, but others perhaps as well would be accepted. And really in this region, that was the thing. There was not necessarily a huge focus on what religious background you were. Lots of different people from lots of different places with lots of different religions. Still primarily Christian. It's not like we're talking about lots of others. But to some extent, there were some other religions, Jewish religion in particular, would be accepted in some of this area, some of these colonies. New York is definitely known for its religious tolerance. It's settled by the Dutch, which, if you'll remember, that's where the Pilgrims went. They went to the Netherlands first, and they go to the Netherlands, and there is religious tolerance there. Well, in New York, there's going to be religious tolerance as well. Now, the Pilgrims don't go to New York, but the Dutch settled it first. Before it was New York, it was New Netherlands, and so there's a lot of tolerance. They bring that there. When the English take it over, that doesn't change much, so that continues there in the middle colonies. So the middle colonies, the breadbasket colonies, lots of growing of grains, lots of religious tolerance are kind of two of the key things here that you remember. And then the other thing that I failed to mention so far is trade as a major economic activity here. Philadelphia is a major city, and New York is a major city. Both of these cities are going to be centers of trade. All right, so that brings us to the southern colonies, and the climate and geography in the southern colonies is going to be very similar to our own climate here in Texas. It's going to be hot, humid summers, a long growing season, mild winters, and still lots of forest and excellent soil for growing things. So the major economic activity, similar to the middle colonies. The middle colonies had agriculture was a big part of their economy. Well, that's going to be the case in the southern colonies, but even more so. There's less diversity in the economic activity in the southern colonies than there is in the middle colonies. There's a greater diversity in the mid-Atlantic colonies. Only real big city is going to be in South Carolina. It's going to be Charleston to begin with. Virginia has some, but the earliest bigger city is going to be Charleston. It's going to be a major port city. The southern colonies have excellent soil, so it is going to be, as I said, lots of agriculture. And you can kind of see on the map there. So the green area, that is lots of tobacco is being grown in the green area. Rice and indigo, and indigo is a dye, like a blue purplish kind of dye that is used. And so you can see in that purple region on the map, that's where rice and indigo are grown. Requires a lot of water, and so you can see that's part of the reason why it's so coastal and along rivers and things like that. You need lots of standing water to grow rice. And then the rest of the area is going to be grains and cattle. Now, a lot of that area you can see, that's going to be kind of what's known as the backcountry. And so this backcountry region, that is going to be more subsistence farming, smaller farmers that have moved out further west just to get land, even if they don't have a good title to the land. They go out there and they are farming and surviving out there, perhaps producing a little bit extra to live on, but not a great deal. And then the green area where the tobacco is grown, you can see that is what we call the Tidewater region. Lots of large plantations, tobacco plantations. Later, these areas are going to be also growing lots of cotton, but initially, the early days of the colonial period, cotton is not a major crop. Reasons for settlement. There's various reasons. The big one, though, is just a new start in life, hoping to make money, to get land, to have that freedom that comes with having your own piece of land. Georgia is settled specifically as a haven for debtors. Lots of debtors in debtors' prison and things like that are in England at this time. And the idea was that we'll create this place where they can come here. They'll have opportunities to start new, and really as a kind of help to them. It doesn't turn out that many actual debtors ever come to Georgia, but there are some early on, and the purpose was to really help the poor of England with this colony. And Maryland, it's also set up with a specific purpose. They actually passed a law called the Acts of Toleration. It's going to, where, in other words, they're tolerating a variety of religions, in particular Catholics. England has a long history of division between Protestants and Catholics, and so there were Catholics that were here in the colonies, but they often were facing persecution. Maryland was set up to kind of as a haven for that. But that doesn't last. The Acts of Toleration are actually repealed pretty quickly after they're set up. And so that's just kind of how it goes in that region of the country. So Protestant is the major religion. Church of England in particular in this area is going to be the majority religion. Government there, Virginia House of Burgesses is going to be, we've talked about in 1619 is created. This is another one of those early tastes of self-government, and this leads to future desire for more self-government. And also then finally the Carolinas, they're set up as a proprietary colony with 8 Lord Proprietors who are kind of in charge. Only one of them really takes a strong interest in getting that region settled, but that is the early days of the Carolinas. So that's the New England, Middle, and Southern colonies. Be sure to rewatch or pause any of this and check out whatever it is you need to check out.